I know I was gonna make a video for you, and this one's just gonna be strictly on the movement of the long line work, right? So the last video was about drives. This is actually going to be a video about how to switch the drive and what you can do to build his pack drive when Bear comes home. So I said to you at the midweek, when I come out here, you know, I kind of have a game plan, but for the most part, I've actually let the outside stimulus determine what I'm gonna do with Bear, right? So I'm watching him, right? I'm walking him, and then you're gonna wanna focus on, look at all this dip in the line. Look at this dip that I have here, right? So not this or this, big old dip. Let's go. Oh, I wish I should have put my speaker box on, but I'll make another video of the e-collar. Okay. So I've got my dip in my line, and I'm going, okay, now what's Bear gonna do, right? Boom, he looks that way, so I'm gonna go the opposite way. Let's go. That was a right turn. So, he still wants to look that way, so I turn left into him right there to go the opposite way that he wants to look. See how he keeps wanting to go look at the cows still? Let's go. So that's what I mean when I say I let the environment determine what I'm going to do next with Bear. Because Bear is always looking around to see what he can fixate on. So I'm going to use that. Then I'm just going to go the opposite way that he wants to go. So he wants to go that way. Let's go, because he's fixated that way. So I'm going to go the other way. Now, I'm always trying to move the head away from the direction that they want to go, right? That's kind of a huge foundation of switching the drive. He stares at the cow and prey drive. Let's go. I turn him off of it really quickly. That pulls his ears back and puts him in pack drive, right? Well, there's a bit of an art to this place or spot, because when you turn him, it's not necessarily going to switch his drive. Come? Not at first. So you're going to have to be quick about this and be very attentive to Bear's ears. What are Bear's ears doing? So if they're back like this, he's in a pretty damn good state of mind. And when he perks those ears up, it's only a matter of seconds before he gets himself in trouble. And for me, the trouble is whining. You know, it starts there. That's the indication that the fixation is now way too much. Come? Good. So you want to be, in these next, few months, very diligent about, let's go, really getting him off that right when he starts to show it. Let's go. It's really impossible to train this dog out of his habits. Come? When he's allowed to stay in his old habits for very long. You know, he's an old dog, so we kind of have to almost try to eliminate that as much as we can. Now, Bear has learned to realize if I get behind him like that, if I fall back behind his butt, that he needs to peel off the stimulus. In other words, quit fixating on it. So he actually tries to stay behind me sometimes, come? Because he's trying to see if I'm not paying any attention to him, maybe I won't see it. Come? And he also knows that if I pull back behind him, it switches the drive, and he doesn't want that quite yet. He hasn't quite learned to love walking in a relaxed state. He's still, being 11, very addicted to hunting. So he's a bit manipulative, and that will make him more challenging for you when he comes home. But right here, he's fixated. I'm going to fall back. Come? And that's actually going to tell me a lot about his level of fixation. Because if I fall back, sit, and he automatically comes to me, he was paying attention to me. And his right? So I just showed you the left turn and the right turn, but the falling back is something I do a lot with him. See, look, now he's more fixated. Come. He didn't pull off nearly as quickly on that one. Here, still hasn't let go of the cows. You know, the cows are still a thing. So when you come out, you can throw all of these things into one session. Right turn, let's go. Left turn. And then intermittently test his fixation. How fixated are you, Bear? That wasn't too bad, was it? He pulled right off. Here, good job, buddy. And in those moments where he's really fixated, and I'm really headed all the way back to the end of my line, that's when I'm gonna say, Bear, come. Because there's nothing like being able to ask your dog to come when called, when they're fixated. Come. That's the hardest way to get a dog to come when called. So this training session gives you an opportunity to practice that and get him good at it. Let's go. Stop. Here. Here, come. Alright, so my let's go is the turn. Here. Come. That's the recall, because you can see he was much more fixated, and a lot of that was air sensing. Notice how his nose was poked up into the air? So that actually wasn't nearly as visual as he usually is. That was a bit more nose oriented. Which I do like them using their nose more than their eyes, but at the same time, he's detaching himself from me in order to hunt. And that's what I'm trying to deter. Here. So you're going to be doing all of these turns. Now, sometimes the left turn needs a little bit of leash pressure. So if you need to cinch your line up, you're going to pull that left hand back like that, put tension on the line, and then do this. You can almost push your body into him. And that's going to allow you to turn without him moving forward. Okay? So you're just going to be watching his ears and mixing up all the turns. Let's go. Based off his ears. Left turn. And I try to keep it with this guy. I don't particularly like being predictable. But, so, the more you mix it up and keep him guessing, the more he'll start to tune into you and be aware of your turns. When he starts to sense a predictability in your turns and you start to get really, like a lot of people will just do right turns, right turn, right turn, right turn, because it feels the most natural. The dog knows, and they'll just fixate the whole time. So you really want to actually keep that all mixed up. Now there's another turn that I do with him, or two other moves that I do with him specifically, especially when he's extra fixated. Sometimes I'll cross directly behind him like this. I'm almost putting my feet behind his butt. See how that moves him? See how I didn't even add leash pressure or e-collar pressure, that just moves him. There's something about getting out of a dog's peripheral vision that makes them want to tune in with you. They go, where did you go? So when I use that turn, it's because I've done a left turn and a right turn and I can't actually get him, I can't switch the drive, right? Sometimes if I turn left and right, he stays in that prey drive. It doesn't actually resolve the issue. So in that case, I will step behind him like that. See how that turned him? Just literally just putting my feet behind his butt. It turns him in a 360 as well. And that 360 oftentimes gets him in pack drive. Now, most of these turns is more of a commitment, right? So, see if I can get a recall here. Bear, come. When I say bear, come, I'm going to say here. See how I use my leash to guide him over to my left side? Sit. And sit. This is a commitment. Let's go. So I actually want him to understand when I say bear, come, it means you have to come over here and commit to me 100%. Let's go. It's just a turn. So that's the difference in my commands. If I turn left or right, let's go. And if I fall back to the end of my line, it's going to be bear, come, here, and sit. So those are the distinctions in my commands. If I want a dog to go into a here command, I'll just keep walking backwards. Bear here. Bear here. So the dogs are learning the commands, but they're also learning my movement. That's why I'm going over this, because this movement, come, of falling backwards like this here, is how he's learning to flip over to the left and get into a here. So if you're ever trying to get him to flip over onto a left here, that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be walking backwards like this. Bear, come. Hey, buddy. Yeah, over here. I almost dip my left foot back like this, so he follows my foot and flips around. So that's how I do my here command. Now, there is a time and a place for popping with bear. So if I do a right turn and he veers out that way, instead of flipping around and turning all the way around to come with me, he decides to dart out and go the opposite way, I will go and give him a pop. Because he's actively trying to keep himself in pack and prey drive. And so that pop kind of activates, get out of it right away. So basically when I implement a leash pop, sorry Bear, that was unnecessary. It's only when he actively has blown off a turn or a recall. Because sometimes I'll recall him and he'll kind of stall halfway like that to just keep fixating, and I'll go Bear, come, and kind of give him a pop. Kind of snap him out of it a little bit, you know? Because he's trying to listen, but that drive is overpowering his decision to follow. So that's, I'll apply a pop when I get a blow off, when I'm working with Bear specifically. I don't do that with all dogs, but I do it with Bear. Spot. So Niga, those are all the ways that I'm manipulating him during walking to get into pack drive. This is something else I do to get him into pack drive. So right now he's in pack drive, right? I put him on spot and I watch him. And when he starts to erect his ears and fixate on things, I'm actually going to recall him off of the place board. So see that? Bear, come. Good. Now you notice when I recalled him, look, boy, here. Good job, buddy. When I recalled him, his ears flattened and he came to me. Spot. Sit. So that's why I do this to build his pack drive. I basically put him on spot, come, which spot is a way to build pack drives, because when they're on their place board or their spot board in your circumstances, they typically look at their handler as their handler walks away and creates space. So pack drive, so place board is one of the many ways I build a dog's pack drive higher. And in his case, spot, he has a hard time staying in pack drive for very long. Sit, or yeah, sit. So I will put him there and then I'll watch him and see what he does. And when he erects his ears like that, Bear, come, I get him out of it right away. keep those ears back. I've got some effective techniques with the e-collar I'll go over with you as well that help with keeping his ears back. But I've got to make you an e-collar video before I do that. Let's go. Bear, come. Here. Good. Now the last thing I want to go over in terms of technique is leash pressure. So I really used to teach you guys all about the pop. Now I just apply constant leash pressure with no pop and no movement. In other words, I'm just going to hold it. Come. Spot. So I'm going to show you here with the sit. I'm going to hold it up, sit, until he sits, right? So I didn't pop him into a sit. I didn't jerk him into a sit. I held the leash straight up and I waited for him to sit. Go. That's what when I say leash pressure, that's what I mean is to actually hold the leash pressure still until the dog does it. So, let's go. It would be great if Bear was e-collar trained to the point where Spot, you didn't have to use your leash to influence him at all, and you could just use your e-collar. But Bear's a really hard dog, and he's old. So I'm thinking that leash is going to have to be used a little bit in order to influence his brain. Let's go. The fine line for you two is that you're used to keeping your leash short and popping it. So you have to get into a new habit of using the leash momentarily and then immediately loosening it back up so that Bear does it on his own instead of us forcing him into it. So that's going to be hard for you guys. I can already see that at the midweek. So if I want to do it here, I'm going to add leash pressure back, here, and then forward, here, and then sit, up, sit, release. Let's go. So I basically hold the leash pressure in the direction I want the dog to go. So I'm going to get Bear a little more fixated on these cows so I can show you a good recall. So let's say Bear gets really fixated on something, like dogs are a big deal, and you need to recall him, but he's not responding very well to the e-collar. You're going to add leash pressure, get behind him, add leash pressure, Bear, come. Hey, good job. Here. You notice I didn't tug or pull or yank, I just held. So, easier said than done. Spot. But, and at times he'll be fixated to where he doesn't respond that quickly to it. There was a pop, by the way. Like I tried to turn him and he was going to go that way, and so I gave him a pop to get him to get back and head into this direction. So, he might not come off of it that easily, but basically, when you see that he's fixated, you can use the leash, to guide him into position if you need. Let's go. So that was another example of the pop. I turned him and he tried to veer off that way, so I gave him a little pop. Come, leash pressure. Now you'll notice in that packet I gave you, it discusses the angle of the recall and the let's go. So when I say add leash pressure, that picture, that diagram of the clock is the angle in which you want to do that, right? So the angle is this. See how that turns them? There's something about that angle that turns their head. You have to get out of their peripheral vision to do it. But the angle is here. So all these different forms of pressure release are actually influencing him to switch his drive and get into position. If I want to do it here, I'm going to go back here, forward here, sit, here. Good. All right, and there was pressure release. So every time I got what I wanted, I did release it. Come, here, release, here, release. You see? Let's go. Let's say I want to get him on spot and he's resistant. I'm going to pull the leash over the top of the place board. Spot. And I say pull, I mean hold. I hold leash pressure. He has to get on the spot. So I'm going to hold it, but he has to be the one to release it by getting onto the spot. Come. So I'm going over the pressure release because I think he's too old to learn in 13 days the power of the e-collar. I think you're going to have some reinforcement to do when you get back home. And, you know, once the e-collar becomes like the ultimate influence, you're going to love it because you don't need your leash anymore. I mean, maybe you do for a backup safety, but you don't need it to, you know, put him into a here or put him into spot and all that stuff. But I wanted to explain it to you because as much as it's helpful to understand when to turn and what drives he's in, I think it's going to be extremely beneficial for you also to understand how to use the leash when he's being extra stubborn. Come, because he is very stubborn, you know. If he doesn't want to do something, he's going to try to not do it. Spot. And the e-collar is not supposed to be this tool that forces them to do it. It's just supposed to be an influencer. Sit. It's just supposed to help influence the brain and condition it to respond. So the leash helps. Let's go. Make sure that that's a reinforcement and ensure that you're getting consistency and follow through to make that e-collar powerful without having to correct the shit out of the dog. Come. So hopefully that was helpful. That's all I got for you today. You might write down any questions you might have about some of that. But even as I'm wrapping up this video, I am going to continuously be aware of what drive he is in so that I can continue to turn him and keep him in the state of mind that I need him in, which is tack drive. Here. Here.